Arise, giving all praises to Allah, the Father of the universe, cherisher and sustainer of all the boundless universes. We extend the highest of honors to his holy divine prophet, Prophet Noble Drew Ali, founder of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Islam?
Islam.
We extend high honors to the Moorish flag, the red flag with the green 5-pointed star in the center. 5 points representing love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. These are the 5 highest principles known to man. Islam? We extend high honors to the American flag, also known as the Stars and Stripes. This flag exists as a constant reminder that the European owes you the Moors with compound interest. Islam?
Islam.
This is also the flag of our birth. Islam? We extend high honors to the noble Vanguard staff, keep the peace, and our noble Sheik Chairman, Rashid Ibn Halim Bey, for representing in Temple number 19 on the holy day. And we give honors to you, the ills and babies, for without you there is no Moorish movement. Islam?
Islam.
I would be remiss in my duties if I didn't extend high honors as well to the forerunner, the Honorable Marcus Islam. Islam? Founder of the Universal Negro Improvement Association. Before I go into my measure, I would like to give just a moment of silence and reflection to these ones in Egypt who were in the mosque praying, and some assassins burst in the mosque and assassinated like 253 people. That's something we should definitely, give a silent moment of reflection for. Islam? Ameen.
Ameen.
We're in a day and time, brothers and sisters, where not even the houses of worship are safe. And we must take it upon ourselves to have, as our prophet commanded us, a clear conception of the work that we're called to do. Because if we're confused at any step of the way about what we're called to do, when these various ones who've organized around certain principles, who are at odds, right, with the fact that a prophet was sent to us, right? A couple things that happen. We could either waver, we could either, deny our prophet like Peter did Jesus, denied him 3 times before the sun even came up, all right? Or we could hold fast, we could hold the line, we could stand on the solid rock of, sure foundations stone that the prophet laid, and build upon that in the face of whatever comes to us. Islam? So I give honors to, the noble Vanguard staff of Temple number 19. Our temple was chartered, we received our charter in the year 2006. And, when it happened, we made, pursuant to the Holy Quran of Moorish Science Temple of America, chapter 47, verse 14, which states that each temple can make its own laws and customs as long as they're in conjunction with the laws of the Grand Major Temple. Relative to that, we decided, as a customary law of Temple number 19, to make sure that whoever it was, we searched at the door. We've been doing that for about 11 years. About 11 years now, roughly. All right? And, without any major incident, you'll be surprised with the vanguards, even though we don't speak on it, catch at that door. And the way we look at it is that, we have, women and children, present in the room, and we'll lay down our lives for them. We don't play with that. We were always taught that if, something's valuable to you, that you protect it. Islam? All right? So, despite it being not popular at the time to search at the door, of more science temples, and I've heard it from grand sheiks, well, you shouldn't be searching at the door, it makes a few people feel uncomfortable. Well, I'd rather for them to feel uncomfortable than their life be threatened. Islam? All right? And all praise due to Allah, we haven't had any major incidents happen within the precincts of the temple. Islam? But that's just an extension of, what the Prophet commanded of us, because you'll have to stick by certain principles even though they are not popular. Islam? Like right now, in the world, when you're dealing with something relative to Moorish, there's an ideology that's popular, and that's that, the sovereign citizen. So people think that, everything is Moorish is, when the time word Moorish comes up, it's the birth certificate, challenging jurisdiction, all this stuff. People think that's what it is to be a Moorish American Muslim, right? But we have to remember, we have to clarify what it is that, the title Moor even is. Why did the Prophet even return that title to us? And be clear, that's exactly what it is, it's a title. Islam? The Prophet moved us from the place of bearing a brand, Negro, black, colored, Ethiopian, etc., all right, to actually wearing a title. Islam? Now, if a person has a particular job, works at a Turkish corporation or whatever, and they get a promotion. Usually with that promotion comes a title. And with that title comes greater responsibility. Islam? So when the Prophet gave us the title Moors, or conveyed upon us the title of Moor, there's certain responsibilities that come along with that, right? And we have to be clear as what those are, all right? What I'd like to do is, I'm just going to go through Moorish literature. And what I'm going to do is different from what we usually do. I'm not actually going to read the actual articles. I'm just going to read the headers, which are also called titles. Islam? So I'm just going to read a few, just to give the spirit that the Prophet returned this movement to us in. Okay? So, in Moorish literature, the Prophet has one specific article that's entitled Caveat Emptor. Right? Caveat Emptor. Okay? Caveat Emptor is Latin, meaning
Let the buyer beware.
Islamabite. Let the buyer beware. Okay? And for those who think that this Moorish movement is not predicated upon us learning other languages or understanding the essence of language, you're mistaken, because the Prophet Noble introduces different languages to us that our people did not know at the time. People didn't know anything about Latin in 1928. Islam. He gave us our Moorish American prayer back. He introduced the name, which is also titled Allah, the Father of the universe. Islam. He could have said God. That's what we knew, right? No, he introduced Allah, which is Arabic. Islam. All right. So, but again, Caveat Emptor title. Another title, right, of a article. Prophet announces his authority and power. Islam? All right? Prophet, when you actually read that article and take it in, the Prophet makes it clear that there were those that were confused about what the movement was based on and where the seat of power was vested. So he had to clarify for the record where the seat of power was in the Moorish Science Temple of America.
That's right.
Islam? Same thing is going on now.
Exactly.
Ones are confused about who runs the movement.
Right.
According to the Prophet, Noble Raleigh revealed, who alone guides the destiny of the Moorish Science Temple? Allah alone. Islam? The Quran and Mecca use that same phrase and it says, Allah is alone with no partners. Islam? Right? Let's move forward in the spirit of titles. It says, this one is, the Prophet has spoken. Now, does that sound like there's any wiggle room for your interpretation of what the Prophet brought? The Prophet says that he would absolutely not tolerate any interference from anyone with this Moorish Divine National Movement. From anyone. Islam? Including his sheiks. He didn't play with us. Y'all think the laws are hard on members. Woo, the sheiks. Woo, this is like hot. It's like you stand on a hot plate or something. He turns the heat up on us because he knows, that when you're a leader, right? The Prophet says if the Prophet is not right, the temple is not right. The Grand Sheik ain't right, the temple is not right. It's the same principle holds. Islam? Or if the father is not right, the household is not right. Islam? All right? So again, it says the Prophet has spoken. So when the Prophet gives a law, that's it. Islam Moors? This one. Think this over, you Moors. Consider. Consider what you get involved in when you proclaim your nationality as Moorish American. Islam? Think this over, you Moors. In this article, he says, make sure all is perfect before you request the presence of the Prophet. Otherwise, don't arrange to have his presence.
That's right.
Islam? All right? When we labor to, when we set the temple up on a holy day, right? Prior to the arrival of the members, we try to make sure the spirit, all the ethers are right, right? Because we would do it, and we're doing it in the spirit of if the Prophet was going to walk through the door himself. Islam? And if we do that as a symbolic right, you govern your household the same way. As though the Prophet would just, it's the Holy Prophet. You know how you want your household in order. Islam? You govern your business the same way. By extension, what you do in the temple is what you do in all facets of life. Think this over, you Moors. Islam Moors? Titles. Divine warning by the Prophet Noble Raleigh. It's not just a warning. Right? You know, you come to a four-way stop, there's a sign that says stop. That's a warning. But what is a divine warning?
All right. Islam.
Islam? This is everything from the universe letting you know you might want to consider this before you do this. Islam?
Islam.
All right? General laws as said by the prophet. Laws. And then it goes into in that section, it goes, these are the general laws, the supreme laws will be handed to you later. Islam? So that's general laws and supreme laws.
That's right.
Right? Both governing the fact that, you know, the Moorish American Muslim lifestyle is predicated on law.
That's right.
And it's through our observance of the law that we find happiness.
Islam.
Islam was? Right? I'm skipping around. The industrious acts of the Muslims. Right? So, a wise man said a long time ago, he said, there's nothing wrong with not having finance in your pocket. It's not wrong with that. It happens to anybody, right? But the problem is, if you choose to stay in that condition, that's the problem. Islam?
Right.
Because it's about being industrious. The prophet tells you about being a beggar nation. Right? If you're a beggar nation, you cannot attain the heights of spirituality.
Islam.
Or the spiritualities of life, he said. Islam? What are the spiritualities of life? Uplifting fallen humanity.
Islam.
Right? It's impossible to do that as long as you're begging people, or you're in a situation you have to beg, you know, the nations of the earth, you know, for a place in this world. You have to get your fair share of planet Earth, right? But not you by yourself,
Islam.
right? You as a part of a greater we.
Right.
Because we don't move as individuals. This is not an individual movement. Islam? In the spirit of titles. Moorish leaders' historical message to Moorish National America? No. Moorish Divine National Movement? No. To America.
That's right.
I have to read that again. Moorish leaders' historical message to America. All right? So the message revealed by the Prophet Noble Drew Ali was not just for our pedigree.
Islam.
It wasn't just for the Asiatic nations.
Islam.
It was for the nations of the earth.
Holy good.
Islam, or because what happens is that's the duty of an angel.
That's right.
All right? Carry the message to the four corners of the earth, to all nations. All right? And when you place affairs upon your head, right? That degree of learning, right? That degree representing law and civilization, right? Our forefathers were known as the torch bearers of civilization, right? So wherever there was darkness, they demonstrated a degree of, they would come in that environment and, you know, breathe forth life. You know, it said that Elohim breathed into, you know, that one that was called Adam, or those ones that were called Adam, and Adam became a living soul. Okay? Our people are a dead lump of clay right now, waiting for Elohim to breathe the life of divine creed and nationality upon them, so that way they can be a civilizer amongst men. Islam was? All right? So, I want to stop there in Moorish literature as far as titles, right? In the Constitution of the United States of America, Article 1, Section 9, Clause 8, it says, no title of nobility shall be granted by the United States, and no person holding any office of profit or trust under them shall, without the consent of the Congress, accept any present emolument, and an emolument is basically, let me write that word down. Which is basically a gift, all right? No person holding a particular office in the federal government of the United States can receive a gift from a foreign dignitary, right? Because of a compromised post. Emolument, office, or title, is that word again, of any kind whatever from any king, prince, or foreign state. So what does that mean? That means that the United States of America government, right, does not have the authority, Prophet demonstrates power and authority, right? Power and authority, you know, that's, you know, the Holy Quran, the Great Quran of Muhammad, right? But they do not have the authority to issue a title of nobility. Why is that? Right? That's because when the 13 colonies were originally set up, they started off as colonies. They were foreigners to this soil. Okay? They were not the aboriginal or the indigenous inhabitants of this land. So they don't have the right to issue a title of nobility. However, if you were already here and bore a title of nobility, then you can indeed wear your title of nobility and honors.
Islam.
They just don't have the ability to grant it.
That's right.
Prophet Noble Drew Ali was standing at the convention in 1928 with this garment on right here, right? He said, this garment represents power. It represents the royal prince. He said, and if you obey my voice, it said represents power. He said, if you obey my voice, you will share in that power with me. Islam?
Islam.
It's also known as the mantle. We talk about the Prophet Muhammad. When he first received his prophethood, it terrified him, so he went home, ran, and hid under the mantle. Islam? But this right here represents power. That was the particular degree the prophet gave us, right? And when he demonstrated that degree of the royal prince, right? Go back and read Machiavelli. Okay? Machiavelli's book was called what? The Prince. And what does it deal with? It deals with hereditary rights of how one should rule. Islam? Now, where did Niccolo Machiavelli get those degrees from in the 1600s? That was the Moorish law, right? That was the law that the Sultan handed down to the royal princes. Islam. Now, what does our Prophet Noble Drew Ali represent to us? All right, he is an angel. He is a prophet. He is our grand ruler. Islam. From a corporate side, because indeed the Moorish Science of America is incorporated in the said government, he will be the president and chairman of that side of the nation. Islam. All right. So he represents all these particular things. Thus, the power and authority is vested in him to issue the titles of nobility back lawfully to the Asiatics of the Americas.
Islam.
Right? Now, in the process of doing that, all right, he must indeed give you a body of law. All right? Your own pedigree body of law. Right? So he gives you a more signed symbol of America, divine constitution and bylaws. Okay? So you have the U.S. federal constitution, the free national constitution of all beings, right? Why is it the free national constitution of all beings? Because after this was formulated, the constitutions around the earth began to change their constitutions to match this one. So no matter where you're at, if you know this, you know the governments of the earth. Islam Moors. So the Prophet, so that's the national constitution. But he gives you a divine constitution and bylaws, right? Now, how this is structured, because you have to be taught it, the divine constitution is Act 1. Grand Sheik, the chairman of the Moorish Science Temple of America, has the power to make law and enforce laws with the assistance of the Prophet and the Grand Body of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Assistant Grand Sheik is to assist the Grand Sheik in all affairs if he lives according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and it is known before the members of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Islam? That is the divine constitution. The bylaws are Acts 2 through 7. Islam? Now in Act 7, he gives you it mentions the title faithful, right? And it says the word title is in that act, right? But that's not the only title that's mentioned in Act 7. There's a bunch of titles in Act 7, right? Let's read Act 7. It says all members must promptly attend their meetings and become a part and parcel of all uplifting acts of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Members must pay their dues and keep in line with all necessities of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Then you are entitled to the name of faithful. Husband, you must support your wife and children. Wife, you must obey your husband, take care of your children, and look after the duties of your household. Sons and daughters must obey father and mother and be industrious and become a part of uplifting fallen humanity. All Moorish Americans must keep their hearts and minds pure with love and their bodies clean with water. This divine covenant is from your holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali, through the guidance of his father God Allah. Islam? Titles, right? Member is a title bearing responsibilities. Islam? Right? Father, let's go faithful, right? Because it says then if you do these particular things, you're entitled to, right? So that's the big thing now, right? Entitlement. People feel entitled to a particular thing. They feel as though it's almost their birthright to receive this particular thing. But if you do these acts, you are entitled to the name of faithful. Now, after the Prophet Muhammad passed, peace be upon him, right? Prophet Muhammad of Arabia. When he passed, his successors became known as caliphs, or khalif in Arabic, right? The term khalif means successor, right? But the khalif was also known as, by virtue of this office, Amir and Mu'minun, which means commander or prince. Is that royal prince again? Commander or prince of the faithful. Mu'minun means faithful. Okay? So it says that you are entitled to the name of faithful, and be clear that the commander of the faithful from a Moorish perspective is prophet. Islam. Husband, you must support your wife and children. That title, husband, is a title. It's a high title with duties attached. Wife, high. Listen to what's on the wife. It says you must obey your husband, take care of your children, and look after the duties of the household. Wife is no game.
That's right.
There's a lot of instructions for wife. Islam, right? Because again, why? Because our open enemies know that, yeah, you can attack a man. It's like attacking an individual, right? If you attack a woman, you take the whole house out.
That's right.
The woman is not in order. The husband's going to fail. He's going to fail. The children are going to fail. Islam, and anything she touches is going to fail. Islam, that's why the woman has a lot of responsibilities. Islam, it's also why when she proclaims her nationality, the first thing she got to do is turban up. She got to protect that. Islam, guard your thoughts, all right? Children, all right? Well, which is sons and daughters, right? And sons and daughters is not just our children. We're sons and daughters as well. So that applies to us as well, right? Says what? Sons and daughters must obey father and mother, become industrious, and become a part of uplifting a fallen humanity. Islam? So these are things that's on us. So we are sons and daughters because indeed our prayer is, Allah, the Father of the universe. So we beseech Allah as our Father, thus making us sons and daughters, which is a title because you are the son and daughter, you are the bloodline lineage of the Father of the universe. Hence the word Moabite. Of the Father. That's what Moabite means. Of the Father. Okay? So all these, and again, it seals it. The seal on that act is this divine covenant, right? It's from your holy prophet, noble Drew Ali, through the guidance of his father God Allah, right? And indeed, prophet, noble Drew Ali are all titles. As a degree to be manifested as well. Islam, we honor all true and divine prophets. Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, Confucius. Islam, we also honor Drew Ali, prophet, noble Drew Ali. Islam, so just as, depending on what you're demonstrating, you might demonstrate prophet Jesus, right? You want to demonstrate love, right? Or love made manifest. Or if you want to demonstrate justice, right? If there's an unjust act in the world, you go to set that straight, you demonstrate the degree of justice, or Jesus. You manifested that. For that moment, you are Jesus.
That's right.
Islam? If you're demonstrating the letter of the law to a stiff-necked, hard-headed people who never do anything except by point of a sword, you demonstrate Prophet Muhammad. Islam? If you're demonstrating enlightenment, right? That awareness, right? The discipline to break, the cycle of, life, death, and rebirth, right? You're demonstrating Prophet Buddha. Islam? If you demonstrate ancestral reverence, right? The ways of the ancestors, right? Or virtue, principles of virtue, right? Or, ceremony and form to the letter, you demonstrate the degree of the Prophet Confucius. This is what made China so successful because they demonstrated Confucius to the letter. Islam. But if you're demonstrating teaching things according to science, you're demonstrating Prophet Noble Drive. Islam. Jesus taught according to parables. That was Jesus' method of teaching. Okay? In the book of Mark, it talks about, it says when the inner 12 was around Jesus when he was alone, he says, to you I give the inner mystery of the kingdom of God. But to them, to those on the outside, I speak in parables. Islam? That's right. Because a person that doesn't know or doesn't have the discipline to do right, about the science, information out of season can do harm. Islam. So he spoke to them in parables and watched them. If he saw specific ones that was ready, he brought them closer. Islam. That's right. He had the inner 12, he had groups that were outside of that, and then he had the general masses. Right? The Sermon on the Mount was when he was speaking on, that was kind of like like we have the annual convention of Boy Science Temple of America, but that was a third heaven meeting because people try to live according to those precepts of, blessed are the poor, for they are this, and so on and so forth. But if you aren't a master already, you can't unfold those teachings. Those are for masters. Those lessons right there. Islam. And he told the disciples, he said, many things I have to tell you, but you cannot bear them.
Islam.
So they hadn't even came to their complete unfoldment yet, but yet sought to write books of their own. Why many of our people who profess what is called Christianity have a hard time manifesting the degree, because it was handed down to them by ones who hadn't fully manifested. Islam. But if you're teaching according to science, or Noble Drew Ali dealt with the concept of prayer, prayer is not according to science what it is according to, you know, a layman's religion. Islam, everything has a scientific application and interpretation. Right? And if you're not demonstrating that, you're not demonstrating Prophet Noble Drew Ali. That's why our methodology of demonstration is different from those of Arabia. Prophet gives us a degree of think not with Arabia. Islam, right? And the full and full think not with Arabia, that one soul is apart among many men. Islam. But the point is that, you know, we have a different way, or different, you know, different mores and folkways, based upon the fact that what had happened to us needed a different application. A doctor gives you a specific prescription based on your symptoms. Come to a doctor's office, he asks you, well, what's wrong? Oh, my ankles are swollen and this and that, whatever. Like look in the book. Okay, well, do this many times a day. You have to do it specific to the way he gave it to you. If not, then it voids it out. Prophet Noble Drew Ali came and gave us those prescriptions in a specific way. And if you choose to do it your way, he said, your way you want, your way you will have, but your way will not work. Islam, right? So titles, why titles, right? Because with titles, he's working, he's laboring to bring you into what Allah had placed on his shoulders as to reveal as our own society, the Moorish American society. That society is described in chapter 30 of the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Islam, let's notice the social duties. Please go to chapter 30. Non-Roman readers is chapter XXX.
Islam, Sheik.
Islam, Muslim. And it reads, holy instruction from the Prophet, the social duties. It reads, when thou considerest thy wants, when thou beholdest thy imperfections, acknowledge his goodness, O son of humanity. And for those taking notes, write that phrase down. O son of humanity. Who honored thee with humanity, endowed thee with speech, and placed thee in society to receive and confer reciprocal helps and mutual obligations, protection from injuries, thy enjoyment of the comforts and the pleasures of life. All these thou owest to the assistance of others, and couldst not enjoy but in the bands of society. Islam was, in that verse right there, he just gave you the complete definition of government. But if you're ignorant of government and you pick this text up thinking only solely in a religious sense, which we have a bad interpretation of what religion is, all right, you will miss the fact that, you know, Noble Drew Ali was also a lawman too. And he's breaking down to the law of what it is to exist in our Moorish American Muslim society. Islam, that demonstration of protection from injuries, that's the primary duty of government. If you're a citizen of any particular government, you should be protected from injuries, right? What's going on in Libya right now in terms of so-called Africans, all right, being abused and tortured? I even saw a video clip today of, it was 4 Africans they had on a rotisserie style grill over flames, barbecuing the bodies, right? But when you find out who they are, these are ones who have escaped from their countries with no paperwork, no identification, no nothing. Find themselves in Libya and cannot prove their nationality. Islam, as a result of that, the lawfuls, they are subject to all the abuses that the lawful citizens care to bestow. No protection from injuries, because they're not citizens of that nation. Islam Moors? So if someone comes to you and tells you that, well, you know, we can be Moors, but what we got to do is we got to expatriate. We got to give up our citizenship. It's a setup, because if you give up your citizenship, you find yourself, and you're not a citizen of any other nation, you're what they classify as stateless. That's right. Right? And there's something known as the Stateless Persons Convention. Okay? It goes back to, I think it was like 1959. All right? And because what happened was, around the nation, they had to create, or around the world, they had to create a body of law for people who had no nationality. Due to whatever, it was a government overthrow, or they were seeking asylum to another nation or whatever, and just found themselves in a position where there was no protection, and it was just all these abuses back and forth or whatever. And the degree they demonstrated by even doing a stateless persons convention, because they didn't have to, because there's no law governing those with no nationality.
Right.
But the degree the Prophet Noble Riley gives you in this phrase here in your Quran, when he says, "For the sake of humanity." They did the Stateless Persons Convention for the sake of humanity. The fact that these people bore the spirit of the great God Allah, the great God of the universe, known to all the nations by different names, right? For the sake of humanity. You know what? We know they don't have any rights, but let's grant certain concessions for ones that find themselves safe. Islam? But every step of the way, you want to bear a nationality. Islam? Verse 2. It is thy duty, not option, it is thy duty, therefore, to be a friend to mankind, as it is thy interest that man should be friendly to thee. As the rose breatheth sweetness from its own nature, so the heart of a benevolent man produceth good works. He enjoyeth the ease and tranquility of his own breast. That's Islam. Ease and tranquility. And rejoiceth in the happiness and prosperity of his neighbor. He openeth not his ear unto slander. The faults and failings of men he give a pain to his heart. His desire is to do good, and he researcheth out the occasions thereof. In removing the oppression of another, he relieveth himself. So think about that Stateless Persons Convention with that verse. In relieving the oppression of another, you're relieving yourself. Islam. From the largest of his mind, he comprehendeth in his wishes the happiness of all men, and from the generosity of his heart, he endeavoreth to promote it. Islam. Now, what you must understand, there are certain chapters in the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, excuse me, that work together. Chapters 30, 31, and 32 work together under the principle of society, if you know what you're reading. And just for the sake of clarity, I'd like to go through those if it pleases the Bible. It says, chapter 31, holy instruction from the Prophet, justice, right? Verse 1, it jumps immediately into it. The peace of society, right, dependeth on justice. The happiness of individuals on the safe enjoyment of all their possessions. Verse 2, keep the desires of thy heart, therefore, within the bounds of moderation. Let the hand of justice lead them aright. Cast not an evil eye on the goods of thy neighbor. Let whatever is his property be sacred from thy touch. Islam? So that verse right there is attacking. It can be interpreted to be attacking the doctrine of discovery. Because the Pope of Rome, right, look at the vast empires of the Moors, all the dominions, all the sciences, all the wealth, right? Then looked at what he was the master of what he surveyed. Looked at Europe. And there was no comparison what the Moors had, the Asiatic nations had, to what Rome had. All right? So he sought to cast the evil eye on the goods of his neighbor. Islam? All right? And in doing so, they did it according to law. Right? What you'll notice around the earth, nothing just happens. There's a law that governs all events. Islam? So it said, we can't take their property if they're still Moors. Right? Because there's a body of law that governs them as Moors. That's right. But if we can call them savages, right? If we can get them to view themselves as savages, we can get them to not honor their father and their mother, right? That their days will be longer upon the earth land, right? If we can get them to agree to call themselves by a title that we create, right? Now we can legally go in and take everything that they have. That's right. According to law. See, emotion doesn't even play into it. That's right. Right? The prophet said, in order to be just, you must learn to circumscribe your passions. Islam? All right? Let's move forward. Verse 4. Let no temptation allure thee, nor any provocation excite thee to lift up thy hand to the hazard of his life. He just gave you another major degree right there, provocation. Because the nations of the earth, if they're operating from a lower self, right, they'll seek to provoke you to act outside of your circumscription. As soon as you get emotional, now they can act. Now I'm standing my ground. Islam?
Islam.
Right? It says, defame him not in his character. That's the actual law, defamation of character, right? Defame him not in his character. Bear no false witness against him. Corrupt not his servant to cheat or forsake him. And the wife of his bosom, O tempt not to sin. It will be a grief to his heart, which thou canst not relieve. An injury to his life, which no reparation can atone. In thy dealings with men, be impartial and just, and do unto them as thou wouldst they should do unto thee. Be faithful to thy trust, and deceive not the man who relieth upon thee. Be assured it is less evil in the sight of Allah to steal than to betray. Islam? Oppress not the poor, and defraud not of his hire the laboring man. When thou sellest for gain, hear the whispering of conscience, and be satisfied with moderation. Nor from the ignorance of thy buyer make any advantage. So even in our society, the Prophet has given you the morals on our economic unfolding. Okay? So yes, economic security is important. All right? And it takes finance to uplift the nation, but there's laws that govern how we approach that. And from a broader, greater Quran of Muhammad demonstration, there's laws on against usury. These inflated interest rates that you put on people. Islam, which is Torah based, which is Code of Hammurabi based. It's an ancient law. Islam. Moving forward. 12. Pay the debts which thou owest, for he who gave thee credit relieth upon thine honor. And to withhold from him his due is both mean and unjust. 13. And he seals it just like he opened it. Finally, O son of society, examine thy heart, call remembrance to thy aid, and if in any of these things thou hast transgressed, make a speedy reparation to the utmost of thy power. And our people, Islam was, surely Allah speaks the truth through his holy divine prophet, Noble Dry Ali Islam. So he even gave you another degree right there, reparation. We hear our people screaming, reparation, we need reparation, right? But there's a code to that, right? That you have to be formulated as at least a society, right? Better yet, a nation, right? But at least a society governed according to the ancient pedigree principles of your forefathers, right? To even be able to hold the nations of the earth to account for what they've done, right? Because if you injure someone, you have to prove, in order to prove the injury, you have to prove that the person can answer, can apply to the courts, right? And if you're not a civilized people, much less an active citizen, how can you apply it to the courts lawfully? Islam. And the last one I was going to read is chapter 32, the holy instructions from the Prophet on charity, right? And that word charity is the word, in Arabic is the word zakat, right? Right? Zakat, the word charity, is a loose translation. Right? The word actually means to make clean. That when you give charity, right, you're actually lightening the karmic load, right? If you went ahead and, accumulated a bunch of wealth, right? In the process of you accumulating that wealth, you could have offended some universal law. It's possible, right? Because again, the science of you accumulating the wealth is not for your own selfish selves, right? It's designed for you, it's given to you that you will do the right thing with it. In uplifting fallen humanity and teaching those things necessary to make better citizens. Islam? Hence the concept of charity or zakat, to wiping your own slate clean by giving, right? And according to the principles of Islam, it's mandatory. It's not optional. You have to. Islam? So let's get the degree on charity. It says, happy is the man who hath sown in his breast seeds of benevolence, right? That's the degree. There's something known as a benevolent society, a benevolent mutual aid society, all right? Or the policeman's benevolence society, right? The produce thereof shall be charity and love. From the fountain of his heart shall rise rivers of goodness, and the streams shall overflow. For what? The benefit of mankind. It says, he assisteth the poor in their trouble. He rejoiceth in the furthering the prosperity of all men. He censureth not his neighbor. So how do the Moors feel about censorship? We let people express yourself, right? But within the bounds of law. Islam? All right? He believeth not the tales of envy and malevolence, neither repeateth he their slanders. Now, benevolence and malevolence are polarities of one another. And he just gave them to you, within a couple verses of each other. Okay? It says, 5. He forgiveth the injuries of men. He wipeth them from his remembrance. Revenge and malice have no place in his heart. That particular verse is very close to an organization known as the Freemasons, right? Where they say charity to all and malice to none, right? We have that as revenge and malice have no place in our heart. Islam, for evil he returneth not evil. He hateth not even his enemies, but requiteth their injustice with a friendly admonition. Now keep in mind, that's a master's degree. That's a lifetime practice, right? That's not something you just do, all right? The griefs and anxieties of men excite his compassion. He endeavoreth to alleviate the weight of their misfortunes, and the pleasure of success rewardeth his labor. He calmeth the fury. He healeth the quarrels of angry men, and preventeth the mischiefs of strife and animosity. He promoteth in his neighbor peace and goodwill, and his name is repeated with praise and benediction. Islam. Again, surely Allah speaks the truth to his holy divine prophet, noble trial of Islam was. You ever notice the reverential tone that when throughout history, when the Moors are mentioned, all the accolades that come? The Moors, all the founders of civilization. All the Moors, the ones who put 900 baths throughout Cordoba, Spain. All the Moors who were the ones that did this, and the navigators, right? That's the legacy you got to continue. You're going to call yourself a Moor, Moorish American, Moabitus. All these high titles, you got to fall in line with the responsibilities of those things. Islam, if we're not ready to do those things, but for some reason this movement attracts you, hold your seat until you're ready. But attend your meetings promptly. Islam? All right? So now, I want to move from that. This is an interesting book to get, so for those taking notes, it's a real good one. It's called The Handy History Answer Book. And it's written by, and again, that's The Handy History Answer Book for the camera. And that's by Rebecca N. Ferguson. Handy History Answer Book. Okay? This book right here is good because it gives a kind of general outline of history. And in fact, if you can get H.G. Wells' outline of history, that's the books that's reputed to have been on the prophet's desk when he was in his office. When the secretary was taking the notes, it's reported that those books that were off to the side was the outline of history. So that's definitely, you got to get those, right? Why would our prophet have those on his desk? Okay? But what I like to draw from is a section in here under philosophy and government. In this section, under a section called What is Natural Law? It says, and this is going to tie into societies, okay? What is natural law? Natural law is the theory that some laws are fundamental to human nature, and as such, they can only be known through human reason, without reference to man-made law. Roman orator and philosopher Cicero insisted that natural law is universal, meaning it is binding to governments and people everywhere. Then it comes behind that, what is the social contract, right? So the social contract is that which we know as the social duties, okay? It says, the social contract is the concept that human beings have made a deal with their government. And within the context of that agreement, both the government and the people have distinct roles. Theory is based on the idea that humans abandon a natural, and in parentheses it has free and ungoverned, state in favor of a society that provides them with order, structure, and very importantly, protection. We just covered that, protection from injuries. Through the ages, many philosophers have considered the role of both the government and its citizens within the context of the social contract. In the theories of the English philosopher John Locke, write that name down, John, L-O-C-K, with an E on the end, John Locke. He lived from 1632 to 1704, all right? Notice this time period is right after the Moors were expelled from Spain, which was 1610. So here he comes 632 with this knowledge about social contract, right? But it says the social contract was inexplicably tied to natural law, quote, in parentheses, the theory that some laws are fundamental to human nature. Locke argued that people first lived in a state of nature where they had no restrictions on their freedom. Realizing that conflict arose as each individual defended his or her own rights, the people agreed to live under a common government which offers them protection. But in doing so, they had not abandoned their natural rights. On the contrary, argued Locke, the government should protect the rights of the people.
That's right.
Particularly those of life, liberty, and property. Right? Prophet just demonstrated property, protection of property, and justice, challenge of justice. Right? Locke put these ideas into print, publishing his two most influential works in 1690. The first one was Essay Concerning Human Understanding, and the next one is Two Treatises of Government. These works firmly established him as the leading philosopher of freedom, and this is amongst Europeans, clearly. His writings profoundly influenced Thomas Jefferson, author of the Declaration of Independence, which asserts that there are self-evident truths, which are natural laws, that people are, quote, endowed by their Creator with certain and unalienable rights, which are natural rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. French philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau, right? And write that name down, Rousseau. Write down Jean, which is J-E-A-N, and just write Rousseau, which is R-O-U-S-S-E-A-U. And he lived from 1712 to 1778. Okay? You have to, why I'm giving you these Europeans to look up is because these are your forefathers' students. Islam, right? And what you do is, when you study them, you put their book here, and you put your Quran right here. And that's how you're able to square or correct where they went off the path. Islam? That's how most American studies. Right? So French philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau, one of the great figures of the Enlightenment, which was a cultural period of the 17th and 18th centuries during which reason was celebrated as a superior human virtue, later published a book on the subject of the social contract. In his book, The Social Contract, he outlined that people enter into a binding agreement among themselves, and it is incumbent upon them to establish their government and government systems, be recognized by the government in which they live and the nations of the earth. All right? According to Rousseau, people, quote, have a duty to obey only legitimate powers, meaning that only the people can decide who governs them. You know, the consent of the government. That's right. Islam. Rousseau, Republican form of government, Article 4, Section 4. Rousseau's ideas helped promote the causes of the French Revolution from 1789 to 1799. And even with that, when you research the French Revolution, and when you do, research the role that the society known as the Freemasons had in overthrowing the tyrannical government. Islam, a society did that to help institute a republican form of government. Islam, the Board of Science Temple of America, teaching those things are necessary to make our people better citizens, right? Has an obligation to make sure that the law is carried out. Islam, and I'll get into it, another period. The concept of the word necessary. Necessary is a master's word. Anytime you hear the word necessary in law, pay attention. There's in the United States Constitution, Article 1, there's a clause known as the necessary and proper clause, right? Necessary and proper clause. This is what gave birth to what you now know as eminent domain, okay? And there's a maxim, because every law has a maxim or a bit of wisdom, phrase of wisdom that goes along with it. And the maxim that goes for the necessary clause in Latin is necessitas non habet legem, which means necessity has no laws. That's a serious statement. In other words, murder is illegal. Islam? Murder is an act of higher self. Islam? But if someone, Allah forbid, was to rob you, attempt to rob you out in the streets, and you had a firearm, and you went and, in the moment that was going on, you wouldn't be thinking about what it says on the statute, so the ordinance. You would defend yourself, because in that moment, necessity has no law, and natural law prevails. Right? Then you have to, after that, as a member of society, as a citizen, now you have to answer up to the government to justify the use of that bullet. So it's being a citizen, it's a lot. Islam, but you have to be taught, the duties of being a citizen in your own society. The Moorish Science Temple of America is a religious organization, but it's also a civic organization. Right? Where we're civic, anytime you hear the word civic or civil, it's the rights of a citizen. Same word, civitas is citizen. Right? Civitas gave birth to civic and civil and citizen. It's the same word. Right? Islam, Moors? Okay, it says Rousseau's ideas helped to promote the causes of the French Revolution and the American Revolution. American Revolution was 1775 to 1783. Why is that important to Moorish Americans? Right? When did we receive the titles of Negro, Black, and Colored? 1774. Islam? All right, 17. Right after this, right after that happened, now the American Revolution happened. There's a timeline going there. If you pay attention to the timeline, you'll be like, oh, I see. The prophet already duly prepared you with that. It says the concept of the social contract as defined by Rousseau materialized in the Declaration of Independence, 1776, which proclaim is a master word, proclaim your nationality, right? Proclaims that governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. And whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of people to alter or to abolish it. And when you read that whole section, now people will take that sentence and run with it. But it also says in that same section in the Declaration of Independence, governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes.
That's right.
Right? Because to start a government from scratch is a whole lot of work. It's a whole lot of work. So you don't want to just scrap the whole thing and have to start over. Because during that time, you might find yourself in a position where you're stateless. Islam?
That's right.
All right. It says, we won't do that. It says the well-known words of the American's Creed, and we've given a divine creed, right? But there's a text called the American's Creed. Write it down and research it. The American's Creed, written in 1917. That's 4 years after Prophet Noble Raleigh started the Moorish Science Temple, or the Canaanite Temple. Written in 1917 by William Tyler Page, right? And Tyler, if you know how these Europeans were moving back in those days, everything was signs and symbols. Everything was, Freemasonic movement. And if you know what a Tyler is, according to Masonic law, he's the one that secures the inner and the outer door. I know you know, right? You looked at the Vanguard when I said Tyler. All right? But William Tyler Page, and Page is another one in the Mark Master, but that's another one, right? Of Maryland, also asserts these principles. Quote, I believe in the United States of America as a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. We've heard that before, right? That comes from this book.
That's right.
Whose just powers are derived from the consent of the governed. Islam. So, as a Moorish American, it's certain literature that you just have to have. Like, when it comes to things concerning the early founding of the government here, you have to have that. Because once you put the turban on or the fez on, you're expected to know these things. People come up to you and just start, espousing governmental principles. And you have to be able to demonstrate those degrees. Islam, because these principles are indeed degrees. Right? It's a step in unfoldment. Islam? All right? So again, that was the Handy History Answer book. All right? I just have 2 more scriptural references I like to use. I can open the floor for questions. If not, we'll lower the meeting. Islam, boys? All right. I'd like to go from the Holy Quran of Muhammad, the 2nd surah, the 92nd ayah, 92nd verse. Just 2 verses, nothing deep. Well, it is deep, but nothing too lengthy. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. Again, that's chapter 2, verse 92. They came to you, Moses, with clear signs. Yet you worshiped the calf, even after that, and you did behave wrongfully. And remember, we took your covenant, and we raised above you the mount, Sinai, saying, hold firmly to what we have given you, and hearken to the law. And they said, we hear, and we disobey. And their hearts were filled with the love of the calf, because of their faithlessness, saying, vile indeed are the behests of your faith, if ye have any faith. Islam? Sounds harmless, right? But when you get into that, the term they use in the Arabic for clear signs is the term relating to the term mubin, right? And the word mubin in Arabic means like proof beyond any doubt, okay? So when proof beyond any doubt is revealed to you, you really have no option at that point. Think this over, you Moors. The prophet has spoken. Islam? Because what happens is after that, if you do anything other than we hear and we obey, you have proven yourself to be an unbeliever. You have proven yourself to be one of the highest things that you don't want to be called in Islam, a hypocrite. Right? Which is the word in Arabic, munafiq. You never want to be a hypocrite. Because at that point, those ones of the society shun you. They turn their back on you because they know you're not one to be trusted. Islam, you are what the law calls an outlaw. You are outside the constitutional fold of government. You're outside the body of law. Islam? It says you worship the calf, right? Which was this, this idol that ones made for themselves. Islam? So it says, according to the Torah, it talks about when Moses went up on Mount Sinai. And anytime you hear anything in the scriptures about a mountain, right? A mountain, metaphysically or spiritually, is a high place. The higher self. So when he ascends the mountain, he's going to appear. When Jesus went in the mountain, he went in the wilderness, reflect on his inner self, right? To do battle with his inner self, he was on a mountain, right? When Moses initiated Joshua and gave him the degrees of prophet and Mashiach, or Messiahship, and anointed him and gave him all his degrees, he was on a mountain. When Prophet Muhammad received his first degree, he was on a mountain. Islam, because these mountains represent elevated places, right? It says, and remember, we took your covenant, this divine covenant, Acts 7, right? It says, and we raised is a master's word, if you know what you're dealing with. Raised is a master's word, right? Raised above you the Mount Sinai, holding firmly, right? There's a verse later in the Quran of Mecca. It says, which means, and hold firmly to the rope of Allah as one community and do not be separated. That's the wala tafaraqu. The word faraka in Arabic means to be separated. In Arabic, faraka, you have the word Africa, faraka, to be separated and divided. Africa, to be separated and divided. Don't call yourself African. Islam, that's a whole nother concept. Islam, all right? And it says, holding firmly to what we have given you and hearken to the law. Hearken means to listen to the law, because these laws are ancient. The laws that there's no such thing as European law. It doesn't exist. The laws that he's demonstrated is laws he got from your forefathers. By obeying the law, you are honoring your forefathers and your forefathers, that your days belong upon the earth's land. There's no point in time where our people were successful as anarchists. In our golden eras and our civilized stages, when we were the masters of everything, right? We were law-abiding people. Our sultans, our mansas, our caliphs ruled with a rod of iron when it came to the fulfillment of the law. Islam, what do you think the tassel represents? Represents the law. Or the fringes in ancient Israel. Right? Represent the reminder of the law, that you will always be reminded of the law. Islam, Moors? All right? And it says, but they said, we hear and we disobey. Later in the Quran, Mecca says, the faithful say, we hear and we obey. So when the order comes down, there's no interpretation. You fulfill that. All right? When that rank and file concept, that military structure, who's the ones in history we love to extol, lift up? Hannibal, General Tariq. Islam, all these great military geniuses, even the Moorish Science Temple of America, with Ira Johnson Bey, Al-Ail, all these brothers that was the vanguard front line. We love talking about them, right? But most of us in the state that we're in now, if we were in their presence, we would probably be beheaded. Because they wouldn't look at us, because these was disciplined individuals. You see what I'm saying? These were individuals that didn't play when it came to the fulfillment of the law, right? These were single-minded individuals, right? What are my orders? Get an order and they fulfill that, period. Results, not excuses. Islam says, but they love the calf, the golden calf, again, which is symbolic. In Arabic, they use the term Talgud. And the Talgud is something set up for worship, but it's a false idol. Okay? It says, vile indeed are the behests of your faith, if you have any faith. And faith, according to more science, is that which man knows is true. That's the only way you're going to be loyal to something. That's what faith is, right? Being loyal. The only way you're going to be loyal to something is if you know that what you're attempting to be loyal to, you know that's the truth. Right? And if something on that level can't be measured up by time. It can't be finite. It has to be infinite. And it has to be of Allah. Right? You want your relationship to last? Your relationship has to be based on the precepts of Allah. That's the only way your relationship is going to last. You want your business to last? Obey universal law. Islam? From a portion of your profits, give zakat. Give charity. Right? And then you can wipe clean any negative karma that you've accumulated. Islam? All right? So that's that. And I have one more scriptural reference. We can open the floor, or we can lower the knee. Coming from the Bible, in the book of Zechariah, chapter 7, starting at verse 9. It says, and again, it's Zechariah, Z-E-C-H-A-R-I-A-H, Zechariah. He's one of the latter, what they call minor prophets. We don't like that term because, we don't make a distinction between the prophets of Allah. So this could have been a major prophet as far as we know. Islam, so this is Brother Zechariah, all right? It says, thus saith the Lord of hosts, execute true judgment. These are orders. These are marching orders. These are timeless marching orders, right? Execute true judgment and show mercy and compassion, every man to his brother. Prefer not as a stranger before thy own blood. And do not oppress the widow, nor the orphan, the poor, nor the proselyte. And let none of you imagine evil against his brother in his heart. Prophet Jesus comes back and says it is not the act, but the wish that's the sin. So if you wish evil for your brother, it's as if you killed your brother. All right? It says, 11, but they refuse to hearken. Same thing we was talking about in that same verse. We hear and we disobey, right? But they refused to hearken. They rebelled and stopped their ears that they should not hear. Yea, they made their hearts like adamant, lest they should hear the law and the ordinances which the Lord of hosts has sent in his spirit by the former prophets. Therefore came a great wrath. Right? What is the duty of a prophet? Save the nations from what? The wrath of Allah. All right? It says, a great wrath from the Lord of hosts. Since I have called them and they would not hear, so shall they call me and I will not listen, says the Lord of hosts. Right? Even that verse right there, like when you think about chattel slavery, right? And you think about during that period of time when it was going on, no prophet was sent to us. Right? Yeah, we have different, slave insurrections and, Gabriel Prosser and Nat Turner's. We had all these different ones, right? They're what you call scripturally deliverers, right? That's the word shaftim in Hebrew, which is basically like the book of Judges. But that word judge don't exist in Hebrew. It's the term shaftim. Shaftim is deliverer. Meaning a deliverer is someone, they're not prophets, but their job is to carry you from one place to the next. Samson was a shaftim. Deborah was a shaftim, right? Shaftim, right? But, the point is they were deliverers, but there was no one to answer or to, get us up out of that situation, to abolish it, right? To teach us the principles of law and bring us back in the constitutional form of government. Now, how many prayers you think went up, right? When a family was broken up, right? Even today, which is what I would say, Black Friday, right? And one's running out to go spend all his finance and stuff like that. Now realizing that Black Friday started off as a clearance sale of slaves. You see what I'm saying? But how many Asiatics cried out when someone, was whipped or mutilated, they were cutting off limbs, or when a woman was violated? When all these things going on, how many prayers you think were going on? Well, why did Allah turn a blind ear, a deaf ear and a blind eye to what was going on? Because right before that chattel slavery period, what were our forefathers doing to one another? We had violated every law on the books.
That's right.
Right? And we had to burn that karma off. Okay? And last, which is verse 14, which is 2 sevens. And I scattered them among the nations, whom they knew not. Thus the land was desolate after them, without anyone to pass through it, and without an inhabitant, because they made the pleasant land a for desolation. And in that verse, the master's words there are desolate, past, and desolation, which is the same word. But that, without anyone to pass through it, y'all familiar with the Liberty Bell, right? There are two words on that Liberty Bell. What are they? Pass and stow. Islam? Because the Liberty Bell deals with the Jubilee period, which is the 50-year period when all ones should be proclaimed free and returned back to their possessions. Right? So yeah, we were, 13th Amendment, okay, yeah, you're free, but you weren't returned to your possessions. Prophet Noble Drew Ali began that process for us. It actually started right before him, right, with the Freedmen's Bureau. Right. And our brother Frederick Douglass, who we honor. Right? But, again, without the knowledge of what the nationality was, there's nothing to tie to. Right? So the intention was there, but it wasn't ordained by Allah. Right? The ordaining from Allah, when we say he was ordained by the great God of the universe. Right? The ordination came through the fact that he returned the flag and the nationality back. Right? And with that, you can tie back under your, and worship under your own vine and fig tree. Right? And confess your own. Islam. But all this comes through the obeying of the law as it was handed down by his prophet. Right? And when you look at a prophet that comes, that prophet is the embodiment of every prophet that came before him. So you look at Prophet Muhammad, you was looking at Prophet Muhammad. You were looking at Jesus. You were looking at Abraham. You see what I'm saying? And he demonstrated every degree in one way, shape, or form of the previous prophets. That's right. And he demonstrated those signs and symbols to the nations of the earth so that they would know that a prophet was in the land. Islam? Right? And at that point when he came, the cemeteries opened up and ones began to resurrect. And resurrection is indeed a fact. Praise the Lord. Right? And for these ones that resurrect this time, the second death will not hurt them. Right? Because you were killed once, but the second death won't touch you. Right? And for a homework assignment, I would like ones to write it down, Revelations chapter 11. Right? And keep in mind that when it talks about the angel, that these ones spooks, that an angel, right, is a thought of Allah manifested in human flesh. Right. So these were men with masterful degrees demonstrated to John, right? Who was a student of the prophet Jesus, John, son of Zebedee, right? Who had received a portion of his degrees, right? But didn't get all of them, but got them later once he was imprisoned on the island of Patmos, right? And through a spirit of, in a high state of meditation, an angel came down, or a man with these high degrees to finish off his lessons, right? And that ended up manifesting, unfolding in what you know as, Kitab al-Injil, or the book of Revelations, right? The word Najla means, the word Najla in Arabic means good news, right? That which is a great pronouncement, okay? So, look at all these things. We advise ones that when you proclaim your nationality, don't start throwing out Bibles and all kind of stuff, because when you was reading them, you didn't know what you were reading anyway. So that's why we say, one of us would say, our people, the Asiatics, that, the Bible's a European's book, and we ain't got no business reading the Bible, and, how could your slave master give you something to empower you and all that? When you look through the whole book, it's your book. That's right. Ain't nothing about no European nations in there, that's you. All those stories about us, right? But the European, with the heinous act that he performed was to weaponize the book with his image, right? But if you read Revelations 13 and Revelations 18, it tells you about those that worship in that image, right? And the dangers of that, right? It talks about those that had, that seal in their hand and in the forehead, and so on and so forth. We can get into those degrees at another time. But more, you need to know who Prophet Noble Drew Ali was, right? There's no doubt or comprehension once you come on in to the Moorish Science Temple of America. I'm talking about coming into the awareness, because you could be bodily here. You could proclaim your nationality and your body be here. But if your mind and your heart is not within the awareness of the Moorish Science Temple of America, or the awareness of the depth of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, or the gravity of what he brought, you technically can't unfold what's been revealed to you. So, the analogy given in the Quran of Mecca is the donkey, right? It says that the donkey, can carry books on his back but can't benefit them from them because he can't read them. So, there's a lot of people, I talk to a lot of Moors. It's funny, I have Ancient and Modern Britons 1 and 2, and I have this and I have that. Have you read them? Right. Well, I haven't got all the way through them yet. Then you don't brag on the book. Because you can't unfold it. Islam, you know. I mean, you have ones that have the Holy Quran, the More Science Temple of America, which is a small booklet, right? And if you want to know about that, read in Revelation chapter 10. The angel with 1 foot in the land, 1 foot in the sea, with the little book, right? But and that 1 foot in the land, 1 foot in the sea has to cover the 101s, okay? It's Revelation 10. Islam, but I'll leave something else. You know what I'm saying? And then like, if you want to stay up all night, become accustomed to your Quran to the point where verses start coming to you automatically without you having to open the book. Once you're at that point, then go back and read Revelations. You want to stay up all night? You're like, Prophet will demonstrate all of this. Islam, he makes those things come alive through his walk. Through his clearly cut walk, right? So the master treads the way. So that all the followers will know that the master went that way. And that's what we have to do, in every walk of life. All right? Are there any questions, comments, concerns, or statements? If not, we'll lower the meeting. Islam, Morris?
Islam.
Islam?
Islam.
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 Morris Science Temple of America, Noble Drew Ali founder, home office, Chicago, Illinois, March 11th, 1929, a warning from the Prophet to be read in every meeting. I hereby inform all members that they must put an end to all radical and agitating speech while on their jobs, homes, or on the public streets. We advocate peace and not destruction. Stop trying out your cards with the Europeans, for it causes confusion. There has been much confusion caused by members trying out their cards. The cards are for your salvation. Failure of obeying my orders will be of severe consequence. We are for love, truth, peace, freedom, and when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any member or group of members that seek to hold malicious feelings towards the temple or the prophets, or to violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement, will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors must obey the laws laid down to them by their prophet, and if they lose confidence in their prophet, give up your card and button, cease wearing your turban or fez, and return to the state where I, the prophet, found you. For this is a holy and divine movement founded by the prophet, Noble Drew Ali. And if the prophet is not right, the temple is not right. The prophet is sending out a divine plea to all true Moorish Americans that they may do their part in protecting their prophet and the temple. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. Peace. Noble Drew Ali. Islam?
Islam.
Islam?
Islam.
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 All praise is due to Allah, the highest of honors, to his holy and divine prophet, Noble Drew Ali. Islam, Morris?
Islam.
In closing, I would like to demonstrate a degree, very short, only 6 ayats, that the prophet Noble Drew Ali, as the prophet Muhammad, demonstrated. And you will need this surah, which is this chapter, or which is this image, when dealing with ones who come with foreign ideals and ideologies, seeking to mix with that which is clean and pure. Islam, Morris?
Islam.
This is Surah 109 of the Holy Quran of Muhammad, the great Quran of Muhammad. And it's known as Surah Al-Kafirun, right? The word kafir in Arabic means to conceal what you know to be true. They interpret it, they translate it loosely as unbeliever, okay? But Kafirun, it says Surah Al-Kafirun, in the name of Allah, the most gracious, most merciful. Say, O ye that reject faith, I will not worship what you worship. Nor will you worship what I worship. And I will not worship that which ye have been wont to worship. Nor will ye worship that which I worship. To you be your way, and to me be mine. That last verse is Lakum dinukum waliya din, which literally translates, to you be your means by which you are judged, and to me be mine. Right? So stop arguing with people who clearly are presenting themselves as not in conjunctions with your prophet. Right? Part amicably and don't part with malice in your heart. Right? Brother or sister, to you be your way, and to me be mine. May Allah make your path smooth. Islam? And that's the way of our Moorish American forefathers, to do everything we can in the spirit of love, because Allah is indeed love.
That's right.
Islam, Morris?
Islam.
And with that, I'll leave you with a perfect peace as I can. peace.
Islam.
Everyone please rise. Face the east, and we'll close the meeting according to the tradition of our Moorish American forefathers. Please hold your feet at a 45-degree angle, standing on your square. Raise 5 fingers on your left, 2 fingers on your right, invoking the sacred presence of the 7 Elohim that created everything that ever was, is, or evermore shall be, also known as the 7 stars of the right hand. Please repeat after me. Allah,
Allah,
the Father of the universe,
Father of the universe,
the Father of love,
Father of love,
truth,
truth,
peace,
peace,
freedom,
freedom,
and justice.
and justice.
Allah is my protector,
Allah is my protector,
my guide,
my guide,
and my salvation.
and my salvation.
By night
By night
and by day.
and by day.
Through his holy prophet,
Through his holy prophet,
Jew Ali.
Jew Ali.
Amen.
Amen.
Islam, Moors.
Islam.
Praise Allah.
Islam.
Islam.